Welcome to my video on what's going on with my 25-gallon LPS tank. I actually have a few videos I need to do, but I'm a little bit behind because I just finished setting up my 300-gallon SPS tank. And I wanted to do this one first because this is going to be a little bit easier. I'm going to kind of do this in one take. And also, this is hopefully as bad as this tank is going to get. For that, you've probably already seen it a little bit, but let me bring you around to the side. You see all of this algae in here? Well, this is a little bit of a story. We have some pretty colorful corals too. They're all a little irritated because I just cleaned the pump and now they get a lot more flow. But I have been struggling a lot with this tank, and I want to go through a little bit about sort of my diagnostic process on what was going on and what the eventual cause was. So first, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, I started to have some problems. Like if you look down in here, you can see there's some white tissue kind of buried inside of that bird's nest. Now it's kind of covered in algae, like most of the tank. But I also had some algae popping up. I had coral colors that weren't looking as good. If you can remember, this one used to have 3 colors in it, and now it kind of lost its orange entirely, and the red isn't nearly as red. Other ones, like this guy down here, were losing their orange and kind of going to just more of a bland. Acans were never really affected. These plates really didn't like it, as it turns out. That guy never really did anything, but and I had issues with some of the torches, or the hammers here opening all the way. And I was like, well, that's funny. I tested nutrients, and if you remember at the end of my last video, I had said that I always struggled with high nutrients in this tank. And you know, that had actually come down over time. As the tank had been running longer and longer, those nutrients sort of started to naturally fall. I wasn't doing anything super special on my end. It was just, you know, happening, which was great, and I wasn't opposed to that. So when I tested nutrients, I found that the phosphate was around 0.08 to maybe 0.1 on the HANA kit, which is pretty much exactly where I want it. So that didn't give me any answers. I hadn't changed anything. I was still doing 5-gallon water changes, you know, every month or so. And the tank was getting its regular maintenance. I've got it all on my Apex. You can set a schedule. So I've got clean skimmer cup once a week. I've got replaced my little teaspoon of GFO once a month. I've got cleaning the whole skimmer assembly every couple of months, water change monthly. All these things are just scheduled, and I just do them when they come up, and I clear them when I'm done. So none of that had really changed. And so I started to wonder, you know, do I have a problem with, did something get, you know, contaminated? And you can see I actually did have some problems with rust up here. You can see the rust there, and you can see this paint kind of peeling. And I was like, well, that's unusual, but I don't know that it's really going to cause a problem. But I've seen less cause problems in people's tanks, to be fair. It didn't really fit the symptomology that I was seeing, but I figured, what the heck? Let's do some extra water changes. Can't hurt, right? Well, it didn't help either. And I continued to chase this until one day I came home and my light didn't come on in the morning. Now this, as you recall, was just sort of a DIY. I had bought a bunch of these LED chips, and it ran for about 1.5 years, I want to say, maybe even a little longer. And it was doing great. I never had any problems. Well, one day it just wasn't on. When I looked at the LEDs, they were all super dim. And I went through, and this driver can do something like 12 to 20 LEDs. And I just started shorting them out to see if I had one of them that had failed, you know, like a Christmas, string of Christmas lights. They're in series, so if one goes bad, they all go bad. Well, I found one that was in fact bad. So I replaced it, put the light back up. About a month later, the same thing happened. 3 weeks. Like, this is really lame. So then I was still chasing this algae issue because, you know, it was just continuing to get worse and worse and worse. And so I decided, you know, maybe with those new LED chips I put in there, maybe it increased the PAR. Maybe the PAR had dropped on the LED over time, like T5s can, and, you know, now it is too high. So I made myself this little gizmo right here. Oh, orange filter. Sorry. So my LED driver has the ability to put a small resistor, and I want to say this one's 10 ohms, I think. Just a very tiny, tiny resistor. You can go all the way up to 47 k ohm. So this would have been just a very slight decrease in light, and I just wanted to put that in there, test the PAR, and see where I was at. So I did, and I was at 20 at the top, I think. I'm like, Wait a minute, maybe I got that backwards somehow. So I took that out. Sorry, putting my orange filter back on here. So I took that out, and I measured the par again, and I think I was at 35. And I'm like, well, there's my issue. As it had turned out, some of those LEDs had failed over time, and now I was getting, when I had gone from 250 par down to, you know, barely functional levels of par. And that was quite unfortunate. So the first thing I did was get one of these AI blades. As you recall, the rock work in this tank is it's got kind of this channel here and this channel here. So I need LEDs that cover down these sides, because all of the corals and acans and things are kind of there to be viewed from the bed. And I need to be able to get light down in there. And some will come in, reflect off this glass pane and come back. But really, we don't want to start from here. We kind of want to start from here, and then this light can block from the other side. So when I tested one, although the par was plenty high enough, it had way more than enough par, the coverage just wasn't there. So what I ended up doing was getting a second blade here, and I configured that one. I configured them both for, I think they're at 30% at max. So I'm getting about 250 on the top, which is what I was getting before. And then down on the sides here, probably about 75 all the way down at the bottom, and just sort of a range in between. So things have been coming around. The corals are looking better. They're expanding better when I haven't just cleaned the pump. And overall, the health of things is dramatically improving. But in this process, I had sort of taken a close look at some of this stuff. I noticed that even though I was running these fans for a few minutes every hour to keep humidity down in here, especially during the winter, it got really, really humid inside of this canopy. And you can see how these are completely rusted out. And it's probably also what killed the LEDs, to be honest with you. I seriously doubt that the age killed them. I would bet that the moisture killed them overnight when the fans on the top of the lights were off. And so now what I'm planning to do is to take this lid and essentially cut sections out of it so that I can mount the blades above it. Now the blades are waterproof, so I'm not particularly worried about them. But I need to refinish this hood now, clearly, because the paint is chipping and coming off, and that can't be good. So the first thing I'm going to do is sand it down. Then I'm going to repaint it properly. And then I'm just going to make sure I get a lot more air exchange and passive air exchange. I had done that a little bit here, but now I'm going to open up large sections so that all around those lights, air can leave. And I'm figuring with the ceiling fan on the roof of the bedroom, that should keep this thing reasonably humidity free and make it last an awful lot longer next time. I really, really, really don't want to take the top off. Like, the top hides everything and makes it so clean looking. I'm going to do anything I can to avoid removing it. So I'll let you know in another year how that works out. Have a good one. Happy reefing.